Hello, welcome to our first podcast. My name is Ed Zee, your host, and we're here with Patrick Leung, our co-host. He's a real estate investor, asset manager, multifamily apartments. He has a couple hundred units currently under management. So let's start the show, Patrick. Tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm a real estate investor. I'm come from Hong Kong. Now I'm married and have a kid, 3-year-old kid. So yeah, so nothing too special. I'm a guy that got lucky. End up owning over 100 units of property.
When he said nothing really special,
Yeah.
Can you guys tell me how special is it to own over 100 units of properties? How many units do you guys have? I remember a very wise teacher that said when you start off, it's the hardest and you want to buy one property a year, and he doesn't look 100.
Yeah.
So how do you do it?
Well, it starts with the first one, like everything else, your first step, right? I had when I was 19, I have a decision. My mom said, hey, I could get you a car or I could get you a condo. So that decision itself translated to the empire. Instead of picking the car, I picked the condo. Yeah, I thought I could always get the car later. That's why. And it actually worked out, right? Because what happened was the condo itself appreciate in price.
Right.
When you bought a condo, and that's 2003 in Vancouver. I bought it at Joy Station.
Wow.
That condo appreciate, it's more than enough to pay for a car.
See, that's smart.
So from then on, I noticed your decision making in life matters about everything. You just have to, if you a whole year, you just have to make one good decision, make one good choice. Your whole life trajectory completely shifts it.
I want you to pause right there. The golden nugget is, can you say it one more time? One what per year?
One good decision a year.
That should be your slogan. Okay, let me ask you. Let me just take you back to when you first made that really good decision between the car and the house.
Yeah.
What led you there? What happened that day? Can you just play it for me like a documentary?
Sure. I'll go back to the time, honestly, when I make that decision, I still had to suffer, right? Because what happened was I make that decision, I end up renting the house for $650 per month. Now, here's the thing. My mortgage and all my expenses cost $700.
Oh, Jesus.
So I am losing $50 a month.
Yeah, we okay
at that age, well, mentally I have to accept it. But at that age, it's like, well, why am I having someone staying at my place, right? I'm paying $50 a month so someone else could stay in my place, right? And living off enjoying the condo itself while I stay at home with the family, right? And while I'm subsidizing for someone's life. See, at that time, I did not understand the true power of real estate.
Take it back again. You didn't understand the true power of real estate. You didn't understand asset appreciation, how you own equity.
Yes.
You just thought that you don't want to rent your apartment to somebody where you're losing $50. Okay.
Yes.
So let me tell you, zoom in more. Okay. Play for me like a movie.
Yeah.
What is that incident? What is that scene that led you to making this decision? What happened before? What happened a week before? What happened a month before that led you there?
Well, I make the decision first because I always thought a house is better than a car, right? That's because, a house, I didn't know about appreciation at that time.
Yeah.
But I always thought, hey, a house is something you could establish. You have a foundation, right? So I believe everybody wants to start somewhere. So you need to build a foundation to start.
Right.
That's my first condo. So I got that, right? Then secondly, along the journey, right, you find things are not as good as it seems, right? Because, hey, along the way, why am I subsidizing and losing $50 a month, right? Because at that time, I'm not as sophisticated as today. I'm only looking at the shadow numbers, like the very, superficial level, right? How much rent I get, right? And how much is going out.
Okay.
But fast forward a few more years, my condo appreciated by another 50,000, 100,000, and I then see the true power of real estate.
Right. Okay. So take it back again. In that moment when you made the decision to purchase that condo, were you reading any books?
Yes, I was so into Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Perfect. That's what I want to know. Okay. So you were into Rich Dad Poor Dad. Were you taking any courses was your mom and dad into real estate investment
Yes.
and they trained you when you were a kid? Like, tell me all about that.
Sure. My way background. So I do know my mom came from the real estate investment background.
Yeah.
She used to manage a brokerage in Hong Kong. So
Ah.
every time she got very wealthy because every time she looked through all those deals that come in from all those
Right.
realtors, she got the first hand to buy it. But she doesn't buy herself, right? Because
Yeah.
technically you can't. So she asked my dad to go in as a buyer.
Is that how they met, right? In
Well,
the future, if you're a realtor, if you're in the business, you
but-
can meet your significant other by buying and selling real
Yeah.
estate.
Well, my dad doesn't have too much
Yeah.
money. He was, he was just a good-looking guy, but
Yeah, like
to my
he's a
mom,
good-looking
right?
guy.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but what he did was, my mom's just feeding my dad deals, right? And my dad just keep buying it, and she gives him the money, he buys it, and that's how we accumulate a fortune in Hong Kong, and join. Where everybody's leaving Hong Kong during that time, before the 97.
Before
right?
1997.
Yeah.
Can I give the audience a little background on this? Right before 1997, that was the year when China took over Hong Kong sovereignty.
Yes.
And a lot of people was fearful, so they left Hong Kong. They came to Canada, New Zealand, Australia. They went to England. And that was the time when you came to Canada as well, I assume, right?
Yeah, before that, right? Just a few years before that, we went to Montreal.
Yeah.
Right, stayed there for a few years, got our immigration, then moved to Vancouver.
Great. Okay, that's good to hear. Taking me back to that moment when you decided, you had parents that were extremely helpful. They trained you on real estate.
Yeah.
They looked at deals before.
Yeah.
You had read Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was
Yes.
your biggest influence.
Yeah.
So what happened right there when you signed the paperwork? What was that? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, when my first deal, actually, I'm very grateful because my mom did all the work.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea what I was doing. Every investor, every real estate investor, so they all remember the first deal. And that's what happened. She grabbed my hand, dropped me in. We got to see mortgage brokers. I have to see a few of them. And before when we closed on the deal, the funny thing is I lost my job. I had a job then. And we had to kind of they're asking me for the proof of employment letter and stuff. I didn't have it. So I end up just delaying that the mortgage broker say, we'll give it to you later. But at the end of the day, we got super lucky. We closed the deal and still he did not receive the paper till today.
That's funny.
So it was because at that time, before I bought into this condo, I was actually fired from my job.
Oh man.
I was working in the casino. There used to be a casino here in Chinatown, in Vancouver, Chinatown. I was talking back to my boss because I had some kid. I'm a business student, but I had some attitude at the time. So I'm like, hey, he's like, hey, why are you acting like this, right? Because I was just giving some attitude.
This is actually the first time I heard this.
Yeah, and then he's like, well, because I hate this job. That's what I tell him. I hate this job, right? And then he's like, okay, come into my office, right? And then he's like, come in, take care of your badge, you're fired, right?
Oh man.
And then I was like, oh, I don't care about being fired, but then I'm in the middle of getting my first mortgage. That's what it sucked. It freaked me out during the closing, but it's become so memorable to me.
It's so memorable, right? Awesome.
So what I learned from the lesson also was that a job is not permanent. The real estate, the asset I own is more permanent than the job.
So there's a couple gold nuggets right here. Number one is his first deal. Number two, the asset's more important than his job. Number three, it's always a struggle to do your own first deal, but it's the most memorable.
Thank you. I think that's pretty good amount.
That's a good summary, right?
Yeah, good amount of golden nuggets.
There's a lot of golden nuggets right there.
Could be awesome. Putting together a book.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let's go back to that first deal again. I just want to zoom in. It just sounds very interesting to me, okay? You had your parents that were giving you the background influence. Your genetics has real estate in it.
Yeah, I know there's real estate in my blood.
Think about it this way. I was taking a course on genetics, and they were saying that when you're a fetus, you get affected by what your mom do. Read some good books, listen to good music, because it's going to affect the fetus. His mom was reading deals after deals.
Yeah, he was doing deals. Yes.
He was doing deals. And then your first deal, you almost lost your job.
Yeah,
you got fired from your casino, and you were freaked out. That's what happened. But you had some background knowledge. Now tell me, what happened next?
Oh, what happened next? was because as the real estate go up in prices, I got myself a second job in a restaurant. Then I start trading the stock market.
Right.
And at that time, it was after the the tech bust, right? The tech bust. Yeah, there was a time like that. And then after the bust, it started recovering. Okay. I was trading stocks. I was making so much money each day. So I got a little bit, as a young guy, I got a little bit arrogant, right?
Yeah.
So I make money on the stock market. I make money on my condo, right? Because we're under some recovery at that time, right? Then I got so egotistical at that time where I didn't do too much due diligence. I go myself. I went to Hastings and Wellington around that area and bought myself a coffee shop. And this is where I lost $70,000. That is a lot of money at that time. That's a lot of money.
When you're young, when you're broke, just starting out, when you're making like $1,000 a month, $70,000 is a lot.
And I was devastated, for 6 months.
Oh no!
Right. So what helped me recover? Like first of all, the lesson I learned there is that ego will blind the eye.
Let go of your ego, your pride.
Yeah.
I remember going to church, and they were talking about humility, and they talked about this king who was really big and famous, and he wanted all these gigantic statues about him. And then God talked to him and said, hey, why are you so small on the inside that you want all these statues about you? And that rang a bell. I was like, wow, I've been so egotistic. I wish I experienced what you experienced when we were 19.
Oh, no, you don't.
I had to experience it now. I just realized for the past 10 years, selling $1 million real estate, it made me egotistic. I just thought, wow, I was 24 years old selling a $10 million house. I'm like, man, it's pretty amazing. But anyway, go back to your story.
Yeah. So at the time, it was probably, I was about 22, 23 years old, roughly around that range where I took the biggest hit on my life. Reality hits me. Money is not that easy to make.
Yeah.
Right. So it totally depends on market, right? So that was my big lesson, right? Ego blinds the eyes.
Okay. Let's go to the second deal that you had.
Okay.
How do you come from making money in the stock market and making money in real estate? How do you make that decision on buying that coffee shop?
Okay. Because I was taking, I was actually in BCIT taking courses of business integrated management.
We'll beat that.
Right. So I was taking business management course there. I thought I knew some. I was playing a little bit. I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I got a little bit of success, and that's why I got way over my circle of competence and I jumped myself into a coffee shop. Right, I was excited. I told my mom, "Hey, I need to buy business. The next thing is business, and boom, I rushed into it. I didn't do proper due diligence, and I end up buying myself a very poor business. Right?
Okay. When you say poor, can you define?
Yeah,
what that
I just
means?
Basically rush in with no due diligence. Right? The owners were saying, "Hey, he's keep selling me about the hope and dream, but the place has no customers," right? The place I'm like, and then my ego's so big that it's like, if I touch it, I'm gonna turn this thing around, right? Turn it to gold, right? So then that's where reality hits, realization hits. I don't have the Midas touch, If I touch it, things are not turning to gold, right? So that's what I learned.
How was that coffee shop owner BSing you into buying this coffee shop?
Well, you guys see, right? I was 22 years old, lack of experience, worldly experience. I don't know what I was doing, but I got a lot of books, right? I read a lot of books. So I think I have a huge knowledge where in reality is not true, right? In reality, the world works different than what is strictly off the textbook.
So you thought that you can handle the business. You thought that you can operate a coffee shop that has no customers.
Yeah.
But
turn it around. Maybe you, from marketing, sales perspective, increase the top line. Let me ask you, what kind of books were you reading that led up to that moment? Oh man, it's a business school, I tell you. Business schools, those accounting books and all that. They to be honest, they're great if you want to be an employee, you want to be a manager, you want to fit a piece of the puzzle. But to be an entrepreneur, it is actually, you need real life experience.
Right. So you got real life experience by buying that coffee shop.
Yeah, and that cost me, right? That cost me $70,000 to buy.
Pretty cheap.
It is, but to me, if I keep growing that money now, it'll be worth quite a bit. I could probably grow that to quite a bit of money. Yeah.
So just going back to the coffee shop, when you say no customers, can you tell me what you mean? Do you have some customers, or is it just like a dead shop that they're trying to sell you?
When we got it was a dead shop because the owner had issues like, oh, they were going for divorce. He haven't opened the place for a few months. All those should have been red flags, and also, it just doesn't make sense, right? Why am I paying money to buy something that has no revenue, right?
So it didn't have any revenue.
Well, because the guy closed up his shop. He closed up his shop, but he sell it cheap. Cheap is not always good.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what.
So it's got no revenue, no customers. What about the rentals? Does he have the rentals?
Got the rentals done.
What else does he have done?
The rentals and a dream.
Then you went back to real estate.
Well, no. Then I went into a depression.
Okay.
Yeah,
so after depression, then you went back to real estate.
Depression. I was sad for 6 months, and let me go through because this phase is actually what I call the most transformative phase of my life. During this depression is where I turned to, from a kid to more of a real business person, because I experienced my first failure, major failure.
Amazing.
And through that, it got to a point where I was so sad I couldn't get out of bed and stuff like that. And from then on, I studied so much about Tony Robbins and a lot of those audio tapes that I could get my hand on, right? So all those speakers, and actually they helped tremendously for my recovery. So at that time, I only have two decisions, right? I'm down $70,000. As a young kid, I could go buy a job, but my education wasn't too good, right? So I could be working about 7 years to pay back, saving $10,000 a year, right?
That's not the right.
So that's one decision I could make. Another decision is like, hey, I look at US, how they deal with the debts.
Yeah.
You could outgrow your debts. What does that mean? So what happened is that as I took the hit, luckily I still have the real estate in my house there.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, well, okay, I'm not good at this game, this business game. Why don't I go back to a game where I'm good at?
Yeah.
So I took the real estate, go back there. At that time, it was 07 or so. You got what you call a ninja loan, right? So you could borrow, the bank would give you a 10% down payment, and then you get 90% mortgage.
Oh yeah.
So I took that on my condo, and I bought I bought a house in Surrey.
Right.
I bought 2 houses in Regina, and I'm more than a couple more times making back my money.
Awesome.
So that's a recovery phase.
Yep.
By first consolidating myself, getting back on my feet emotionally and all that, then coming up with a plan, right? I could go a defensive plan, which is just working my ass off, very predictable, going back to job. Nope, I'm just going to take more risks, leverage more, and going back to where things I'm good at.
Perfect. Well, I think the time is almost up for our interview right here. And don't worry, we're going to do a podcast number 2, number 3. We're going to do a podcast every single week. And we'll get Patrick to come in and we'll do the podcast together. So we have learned about Patrick. We have learned about me. We have learned about his failures. We also have learned about how he overcame it, what he learned, and also the golden nuggets. So I hope the audience, you out there, truly enjoy the show. If you like it, leave a comment below, subscribe to your channel. We're going to make more.